All right, today we are looking at getting the impeller out of the Johnson. So that is going to require us to take this lower unit housing off here, get the impeller out of there. As I was running the motor, it was peeing out of the telltale a little bit, and then it kind of quit. So it's something I was going to change anyway. So today that's what we're going to do. It's kind of something that if the motor's been sitting for as long as this one has, 15 years or so or longer, it's something you're always going to want to do. Those pellets can get dried out and crack, and there's something they say like every 5 years at bare minimum. But we got just the lower unit part with the propeller and the gear case we're taking off. So we've got 2 screws on this side, 2 screws on this side to get that lower unit out, and then there's a screw inside that we'll show you once we start. But I got a number 11 here. I'm just going to start taking these out here. There's going to be a screw in there on the shift linkage that we're going to have to remove. There's actually 2 screws, a lower one and a upper one, but you really just want to remove the lower one. But you kind of move this to the side a little, and as you reveal it, you can see that there is a screw in there. Well, hopefully you can see. It's right here. My screwdriver is on that screw, and you just need to turn that. Okay. And eventually we will loosen up that shaft for the shifter. You can actually get more room if you have it in reverse, I find, which it's in reverse. That's great. Okay. If it's in reverse, it'll be lower and you can get access to the screw easier. Okay, that is, now what I want to do is just take my screwdriver here, just kind of loosen this here. Get this out all the way. Okay. Shifter's unconnected. You can see that we've disconnected the shifter there that was connected with the screw. Tilt this up a little. Okay, get a better angle here. So what you want to do is just start turning it to left and the right. There's a little pin in there, and oh, there we go. Once you get that, take the drive shaft off here. And there it is. That's the lower unit and the water pump housing there. And we've got a little pin, the drive shaft here, that we're going to have to get off. All right. There's a little pin here at the top. You've got to kind of hammer that down. And you can use a punch for this, but I got this little needle I've been using because I don't have a punch, but just trying to get this to punch through. Let's see if we can pull it that way. Spin this. Ooh, we got it. Okay, so that is the pin, and once you get that pulled out, then you can get that housing off. Okay, we have our lower unit on the table here. The pin is out that we had to take out first. You can do that with a punch, some type of a smaller punch. This is our housing here. Water pump housing. The impeller is inside there. You got 4 bolts along here, and that's how you get in there. So we're first gonna get in there and see what the impeller looks like. We are gonna change it either way. We've got the kit, but just a flathead screwdriver. Okay, then we just kind of, since we have our pin off up top there, we can now pull this out. So it was necessary to get that pin out first. Now I can pull this up here and all the way. Oops, my drive shaft is kind of coming out there with it. Should just pull up. There we go. Okay, that's what the inside of the housing looks like there. And this is our impeller here. That drive shaft came up, but that's our keyway. So we want to pull this keyway out here. This is the key. We get a new one of these in our kit. That one looks fine. That's what keeps that impeller on. So this is the impeller here. Okay. You can tell that it's a little bit sheared there. Definitely needs to be replaced. Okay, and then also this piece here. The cover here. Take that off there. Okay, kind of dirtier in here. We'll want to clean that up a little. Might even be, I have the seal that I can replace there. So I'm going to clean this up a little. I don't have an air compressor, so I'm just using some keyboard stuff here just to kind of get that cleaned up. Okay, so I've cleaned it up as much as possible. This is, like I said, a 76. It's pretty old, so it's got a lot of grime in there. But this is our impeller kit here. It's got the impeller, the 4 screws, our little housing for our water return here, and it's got a little keyway down there. I'll show you. Here's the, I don't know if you can read it. It's kind of blurry on these things, but that's the part number here for our impeller kit. I did notice that there are a couple different kits that they showed in the schematic. One had its own housing where you put the impeller. This is the old impeller, but where you put the impeller in a little metal housing and then you put it on. But this one says, do not use this impeller kit with plastic impeller housing. So this is the one that kind of matches up the one we needed. So I guess there's a couple different water pump housings for these Johnsons, but this is the one that looked like that we needed. And I think it's confirmed because we do not have a plastic housing in ours, and so this is the right one. Now, let me find a knife so I can get in here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just replace this, put it back down, and just get some of that sand cleaned off. It must have been some sand in the lake they were using this on last. It's kind of all over everything in here, but I want to get it cleaned up. This is where that impeller is going to be sitting on top here. You can see that it spins there. That's where the old one was spinning like that. And you can kind of tell. I'll show you the difference here. You know, the old impeller versus the new impeller. So you can tell that it needed to be replaced there. Okay, so we're going to put this down first here. And then we're going to just add some grease. Marine grease. Okay. Just add some grease to the bottom here and get it nice and greased up where that impeller is going to spin and sit there. I always want to go a little liberal on the grease with these impellers. Okay. And then also we want to pull this, see that on it's on the water pump housing there. Let's just see how easy this thing will come out here. There we are. Okay. Looks like kind of a grimy down in there too. Okay. We'll grab our new one out of the kit here. Just kind of get this down in there. That new one replaced in there. Okay, that looks pretty good, sitting nicely in there. And I cleaned up the inside here, which is the most important. Okay, get a little bit more of that grease on there. And once you run it and it doesn't have any water in it at first especially, you want that impeller to be spinning nicely on there. Okay, there we are. All right, now we have a new key in here. Let's just kind of, there we are. This is our new keyway or key. Now this piece needs to be placed in our little hole right in here that's in the drive shaft. This is what will hold that new impeller in place. And if you can see, there's a little divot in there. And so that's what you want to do as far as when you seat that impeller. I'm going to get some grease on here just in all our little nooks and crannies. Just grease it up nicely. Okay, and then we put this all the way up the drive shaft. With this particular style, you have to put the impeller on there first. Okay, hang on. Okay, and she slides down. We find out where our little groove is. There she is. And then we just kind of put that over our impeller key. It's hard to see with all the grease on there. Make sure this is straight up and down here. Okay. Looks like that is seated to the bottom there, which is how we want it. Then we want to make sure we put some grease on the top of the housing here as well, just so it slides in there nicely. Okay, a little bit more. Okay. There, so when that spins, the drive shaft will also spin. Otherwise, if you didn't have that in the key, the drive shaft wouldn't spin with the impeller. And now we take the water pump housing and we just place it over the top as well. Okay, now this part that's next confuses some people, and you can get confused. Some people say it's just important how you seat the impeller in this the water pump housing here. And some will say you want to do it clockwise, some say counterclockwise. It depends on, there's some models where you have it out and you have the housing upside down, which it would be maybe counterclockwise, whereas you'd want it clockwise if it was upside right. I don't get confused myself with all of that, because one thing I know is that when you seat the water, the impeller in there, you basically want it to be seated as if the boat was going forward. So when you turn the drive shaft, now this has to be pulled up. If it's not on yours, you can just take a plier and just pull this up. But I got it up all the way. That means it's in the forward position. So when it's in the forward position, the drive shaft will spin to the right, and also the propeller will spin to the right or clockwise, and that's how it's supposed to be seated. So on these where you have, this is a 6 horsepower. So it's got a smaller, more thin drive shaft, so it's tough to get hold on it to turn it, because normally on a bigger motor I'd hold my hand on this and spin the drive shaft this way, and that would naturally seat that impeller. But on a smaller drive shaft like this, what I'll do is just hold this housing, and then I have my other hand on the prop down here, and I'll turn it clockwise, and that should seat that impeller the correct way. See how the housing is going down there? Okay. Now it's spinning, and it's seated there, and it's got the grease. Okay, now that should be completely seated correctly. Okay, and then we also have some new, there's my light, bolts that they give you in this kit. And so I'm also going to replace this with new bolts here. We've got 4 new bolts that we're gonna put for our water pump housing, but I'm also going to just get a little grease on the bolts. Anything that's going to be with the water, you basically want to make sure we're greased up. I'm just going to grease them all up and place them in there, and then I'll tighten them all down here. Alright, let's see how she spins in there. Alright, and the only thing that's really left to do at this point is we want to replace our pin. Okay, our drive shaft pin in our hole here, and we got that in there. Now we need to just put this lower unit back on. Okay, so the shifter has to go into here and it gets a screw, and then this part here is what that shorter part goes into, and then if you can see, the drive shaft goes way up. Let's see if I get any light up there to show you. Drive shaft kind of goes up, and all those 3 things have to be hooked up simultaneously. Okay, we are here round 2, trying to get the lower unit back in this exhaust housing here. Greased up the end of the drive shaft here. Also, I have the roll pin in. You put it at a 90-degree angle. You can just turn the prop and it'll spin. Try and get it at a 90, going straight left and right. Also, this shifter here, you want to take a needle nose and pull it up so it's in the forward position or up all the way. And then again, what we're trying to do is we want to get all 3 things: the drive shaft, the exhaust or the water tube into this grommet here, and the shifter, that all at the same time. So you have the copper tube is your water tube. I have the bolt on the shift rod there pre-installed, just kind of screwed in a little bit, ready to get that screwed in the rest of the way, and then the drive shaft, of course, goes all the way up. This is one of the more difficult lower units I've ever had to put back in, probably because that roll pin kind of messes with it, but it's also hard to find the spot because sometimes it'll get stuck in the shift rod hole too up there. Looks like I'm in. Okay. Oh, maybe not. Sometimes you get in that shift rod. Come on. That seems good, and then I want to get this copper tube in that grommet there. Come on, buddy. There we are. And then you want to put that shifter in the reverse position. Now I'm going to put my chair over here to kind of prop it like that so it doesn't fall off on me, because I don't have a second person here. Let's put that down so it rests there. We got it up in there a little bit of the way. Okay, now I've got to reconnect this copper tube to my grommet here. Alrighty. I'll get this shifter in next. See how I'm putting that in the reverse gear. Okay, let me just move this over here. Need to straighten out that shifter. Okay, now it may be that it's almost there enough where I can possibly get that shifter screw screwed in. I just want to make sure that the shifter rod is down far enough on it so that it doesn't fall off. It's pretty important. It's got to be in that groove of the screw has to be going into that groove. Looks like it'll fit. I want to make sure my water tube is hooked up there. All right, now I'm just gonna see if I can tighten this shifter. I greased that. I greased up that bolt too on the shifter. Okay. Okay, that shifter looks like it's good and hooked up there. Now, we want to make sure the roll pin is in the proper slot to get this up there the rest of the way so we can turn this prop. Ooh, is that gonna do it? Turn the flywheel too. Get that pin in. Getting pretty close. I'm just spinning the flywheel, and that will eventually get those roll pins in their proper spot. Ooh, okay. Okay. Looks like we're pretty snugged up. Just gotta snug up those bolts here. Now I've pre-greased my bolts because you want this lower unit's gonna be obviously the part that's underwater. So I always like to grease the bolts before I put them in. So we've got our 4 bolts here. Okay. All right, all the bolts are in, and let me just take this chair away. Okay, and our lower unit is back on. All those bolts underneath there are in. This is our gear shifter that we just hooked up. Reverse, neutral, forward, neutral, reverse. Now let's turn this. Okay, so we're turning the flywheel. And the prop is turning. Turning the prop and the flywheel's turning. All right.